Hey guys, this is Omer from MMOs.com with another quick weekly news recap of all major MMO news and announcements for the week ending January 20th, 2020. This is episode number 229 of the recap, and the first bit of news this week comes from Smilegate regarding Lost Ark, and it's not a good one. According to an article on the South Korean website The Bell, Smilegate said that they currently have no plans for an American or European version of the game just yet, which likely means that the game won't be coming out in English this year, or if it does, it'll be way late into the year. Now, I don't think this means that Lost Ark isn't ever going to be launching in the West, but Smilegate pretty much did say that it's not in their immediate plans. Now, we know that they've hired people in the past for an English localization, so it's clearly on their mind, but it looks like they aren't prioritizing the Western release just yet, and we likely won't be getting a game in English anytime soon, which is silly because there's so much hype behind Lost Ark, and they're kind of letting it go to waste, which is totally silly when there's so much hype behind the game. I mean, the game is out in Russia, it's out in South Korea, but again, they're not really focusing on their Western release just yet. Next up, instead of the game that we did all want, which was Lost Ark, we're getting a game that probably not many people did want, which is Bless Unleashed, which is the Xbox console exclusive version of Bless Online. The game is running a stress test on January 30th to February 3rd. None of the data from the open beta test or the stress test will be carrying over into its full launch, which will happen later, likely in February. And for those out of the loop, Bless Unleashed again is just a console version of Bless Online, but it's built on Unreal Engine 4, so it's supposed to be less laggy, but we've all heard that before. Still, the game will be free to play, and if you're one of the few people that did enjoy the PC version of Bless, you can check it out for free on Xbox, likely in late February. But the game gets a pass for me because of how much I didn't like Bless Online and how much NeoWiz did lie about Bless Online, but maybe somebody out there will play Bless Unleashed. Up next, some pretty big news from ZeniMax regarding Elder Scrolls Online. The game announced their next year-long adventure titled Dark Heart of Skyrim, which of course takes place in Skyrim. Vampires will be replacing dragons as the main antagonist in this year's upcoming content updates, and like last year's Year of the Dragon, the storyline will be divided into 3 different DLCs in one chapter. The first DLC, titled Harrowstorm, is launching in February, followed by the Greymoor chapter in May. And February's Harrowstorm update features 2 new dungeons and will mark the start of the Skyrim storyline, and May's Greymoor update will feature a new 12-man trial, the Antiquity system, and a reworked vampire skill tree. And Elder Scrolls Online remains one of the most popular MMORPGs here in the West, on both PC and console, and is well worth checking out if you didn't play it yet. It's definitely on par with games like Final Fantasy XIV in terms of popularity as well, so the game is still doing quite well. Next up, Astellia is launching on Steam on January 30th for the first time. The Steam launch of the game should expand the player base at least a bit, but it'll remain as a buy-to-play title. Bronson ENA, the game's developer, also announced plans for the game's future, which will be a new Estelle champion, a new equipment system, a new dungeon, and a new 12-man raid, as well as a 64-player guild battles, all of which will be coming later this year. This is especially interesting because the Korean version of Astellia actually is shutting down, but the developer is still adding new content to the Western version, unless of course all this was already out in the Korean version. But so far, the developers did indicate that they plan on continuing the game in the West, which is definitely good. Personally though, I still think the game should go free to play, only because it will boost the player base a decent amount. And while they haven't really announced any indication to go free to play, I suspect that the game will probably go free to play a few months after its Steam launch, which again is happening on January 30th. Up next, despite being an oldie, RuneScape is still killing it. Jagex announced this last week that the game hit an all-time high in paid memberships, which is up to 1.1 million in late 2019, which is driven by an all-time high in daily active users for old-school RuneScape. RuneScape originally launched back in 2001, and despite being over 19 years old, is still hitting all-time highs in player activity, which is just incredible for such an old game. The game continues to thrive and is actually available on mobile as well, and unlike all the other nonsense autoplay mobile games, RuneScape Mobile is a cross-play compatible, so it's the same RuneScape that players love on PC, just available on mobile as well. And I suspect that 2020 will be another good year for Jagex and probably another good year for RuneScape as well. Next up, Prolibus announced a roadmap for the first half of 2020 for Black Desert Online, which outlines content updates players can expect for the first half of the year. February 5th will have the Guardian Awakening update with the succession skills for all other classes set to roll out as the year progresses. Players will also be able to play and compose their own music in-game, similar to Mabinogi's long-running music system or Final Fantasy XIV's music system as well. Now, while this isn't exactly big in terms of gameplay-altering mechanics, I actually love when MMOs add non-core gameplay stuff like this, such as player composition for music, as it's nice to hear popular tunes while in busy towns. And this isn't it either. Prolibus will likely make a few other big announcements for new content for the first half of the year as well soon. But there's a lot in store for Black Desert Online, and the game continues to do quite well, as it's averaging 13,000 players online on Steam alone, which is still pretty great. Up next, a bit of an odd one. A big class action lawsuit involving Tryon Worlds and ArcheAge was recently settled, which set aside $420,000 to compensate players who purchased patron status for the game before October 2018, or anyone who bought supply crates, as apparently Tryon never gave players a 10% cash up discount that was supposed to come with patron status. If you purchased patron status or bought supply crates, I fill out the class action paperwork, as it will likely take you only 5 minutes or so to fill out, and you might get some cash for it. And while it won't be a ton of money, I expect a lot of players aren't going to bother filling out the paperwork, which means more money for those that do fill it out. It is pretty sketchy though. Tryon promised players 10% off the cash up for buying patron status and never actually gave it to them. I'm curious to see how much money players are going to receive, but I can't imagine it being that much, but it's still worth filling out the paperwork. Next up, an update for Elsword Online. COG Games launches Masterclass Series updates for the game, which adds a new moveset for Aura and Labby. To unlock these new abilities, players to complete the Gaia Masterclass quest, and expect that other classes will get these improvements as well. And despite its age, Elsword still has a core audience. The game averages about 455 or so players online at any given time on Steam alone, and likely many more off the platform. It's an instance dungeon, persistent hub style action MMORPG similar to games like Dragon Nest and Soul Worker. The game launched back in 2011 in NA in Europe, so it's pretty old here in the West, but the game is also running a max level jump event, which kind of speeds up the leveling process. So if you never played Elsword, now might be a good time to check it out. Next and last news this week is that the Pokemon-inspired MMO TemTem is launching tomorrow as a buy-to-play game on Steam, early access. We did talk about this last week and the week before, but I am definitely pretty excited for this one. It'll be at $34.99 in the US, and I'm looking forward to playing it. The global PC and console launch is set for release sometime in 2021, so between the early access, which begins tomorrow, and the full launch sometime in 2021, they'll be adding a lot more content to the game. Namely, the early access version on Steam will only have 76 TemTems, which are basically Pokemon in the game to catch and trade, and the full launch next year will have over 161. I played the alpha, and I'm excited to play this one on launch. Anyway, guys, that's it for MMO News this week. I'll see you guys next week. Later, guys.